I've shown you how to tame the Titans, now I'm going to show you how to defeat them, specifically the Forest Titan. Now before we go any further, if you do want to know how to summon and tame the Forest Titan, then I will leave that video at the end, so stick around to see that. Now in this video I'm going to go over the possible strategies, the attacks you'll face throughout the battle, and then we will compare it all at the end so you can make your decision on how to beat the Forest Titan. But before that, I must say that the server I am using is extremely close to official settings, meaning there are no buffs from me or any debuffs to make the Titan easier. The single player settings have been turned off, so hopefully I can give you an accurate representation of your experience. In my opinion, there are two main strategies that can be used to defeat the Forest Titan, one being the mech and the other being a group of creatures. So starting with the mech, in the video I'm showing you, I used a primitive level 41 mech with 67% in health, stamina, weight and damage. This means there is a high chance that you already have a much better mech than this, so hopefully your battle shouldn't take as long, as mine took around 40 minutes. Now, quick thing to note before deciding to use the mech is that it runs on element, so you need to make sure you have enough to get you through the fight. In this video, I started my battle against the Forest Titan with about 500 element, and I will tell you how much I was left with in the comparison later on. Another thing to remember is the mech can also overheat, causing you to no longer be able to utilize it effectively. Now, if your heat does reach 100%, you can no longer use the pistol to damage the Titan, or the boosters for quick movement. The second strategy I tested against the Forest Titan was to use a group of tames. In this instance, I used a Manigama for my transport and a team of 10 Rexes and 2 Karchars to attack the Titan. For most of the fight, you are going to be using the Manigama to avoid the Forest Titan's attacks, specifically its root attack, which I will go over in the next section. Now, while jumping around the Titan, you're going to whistle your creatures to attack it, which is easier said than done, as a few of my tames didn't seem to want to fight until halfway through the battle, causing unnecessary losses. Now, in terms of stats, the Rexes were all about 10k health with 350 melee, and the Karchars had 18k health with roughly 220 melee. All the creatures had primitive saddles to help reduce the incoming damage. As I mentioned before, there are a few special attacks to be wary of when facing the Forest Titan. Starting with the Vine Grab. When the Forest Titan uses this attack, it shoots vines out of its hand in an attempt to grab either you or your tame. Or if this attack is successful in that, then they will most likely be instantly killed, as the attack does about 15,000 damage. The second attack is the root attack, which I alluded to earlier. This attack occurs when the Titan charges up and slams its fists into the ground. Seconds later, roots will begin to appear below the feet of any players and creatures in the area. The best way to avoid the roots is to move/fly out of the way, which is why I use a Manigama for my battle. Although, if you do stand in the roots for too long, then you'll be dismounted from your tame, which will now be immobilized for a short period of time. The final attack is a bit more passive, as the Titan will shoot spores out of its back into random directions. Now, when these spores hit the ground, they will begin to grow into poisonous trees, which will begin to do constant damage to you and your tames when you get too close. Now, these trees can be destroyed and should be if they are doing too much damage or preventing your tames from attacking the Titan. At this point, I have told you about the two different strategies and all the special attacks you'll face throughout the fight. So let's compare them so you can decide the best method for you. Starting with the mech. Now, the pros for the mech, in my opinion, are it can't be rooted or grabbed, so that completely negates 2 of the Titan's attacks. Obviously, depending on your blueprint, your mech can have extremely high health, so that means you'll be protected throughout the fight, as the Titan can't hit you inside the mech. Now, you also have full control over the mech, so you don't have to worry about it going the wrong way or not being able to shoot properly, unless it overheats, of course. And finally, the mech will easily destroy any of the poisonous trees in the area. Now, the cons, in my opinion, are the mech is expensive to create, depending on your blueprint. The upgrades are also expensive, whether you want the cannon or the rockets. There's the chance to overheat, which I mentioned earlier. And finally, the cost of the element which is needed to run the mech, as for this fight, it took about 280 for me personally. Moving on to the creatures. Now, the pros for the creatures, in my opinion, are they're fairly easy to tame. Rex is very easy to tame. I know Karchars can be a bit annoying, but you can replace them with Gigas if you wish. Obviously, creatures can also be bred for mutations and traits. which can give you a massive advantage over fighting the titans. By sending the creatures into battle, it allows you to keep your distance, meaning you should be a bit safer than whereas in the mech, you're going to be constantly within range. Finally, the primitive saddles aren't too expensive, so it shouldn't be a big upfront cost to go and attack the titan. Now, the cons for creatures, in my opinion, is you've got no control over the ARK AI, so you may whistle them to attack the titan, but like they did in my case, they might not all attack, they might not even go towards it, stuff can go wrong at any point. The next thing is better saddle BPs are expensive and can be hard to find, so if you want more protection, you're going to have to go hunting for them. Obviously, all the creatures are prone to being rooted, and finally there'll be less protection for you as a player because you're sat on the creature instead of being inside of a mech. There you have it. You should now be prepared to take on the Forest Titan. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. Let me know if any other advice or methods you would give, as these are the two I tried and like myself. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, if you want to know how to summon and tame the Forest Titan, then watch this video right here.